You are now listening to the Going North podcast, where you'll receive tips and techniques to advance yourself. I'm your host, Dom Brightman, and every week we're going to be hearing from an author who's going to share their expertise to help you charge forward in life. On a quick side note, be sure to check out Going North the book. It's available in ebook, audio, as well as paperback form for those who love to read a traditional book. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Going North podcast, we have, you guessed it, another author, but not just any author. Other folks at home are probably tired of me saying that introduction. But seriously, though, we have a new author in the building right here. Well, not new, but she has not only written a book, she is also a doctor, so she's got a magical PhD, and she's also a holistic nutrition consultant, a wonderful mother, and a highly sensitive empath. And you guys are probably wondering what the heck that is. Well, I got one heck of a wonderful lady to explain all of that for you, and she is going to be dropping all sorts of gems to put on your necklace of wisdom, because I have the wonderful Dr. Janice Carlin. How are you today, ma'am?
Oh, I'm great. I'm really, really happy to be here and talking about this with everybody.
Woohoo! So I'm pretty sure I missed some things. Am I filling in the cavities?
My journey to having this awareness, I started out like everybody else. My career was in music education, which I still do today, but I also do this other stuff because it was about 2 years before my son was born, so probably around 17 years ago, I guess. I got really, really sick, and it was like all kinds of different things were wrong, but the doctors couldn't pinpoint anything. And so they said, well, eventually, after all these tests and all this time, they said, it's in your head. And I said, you've got to be kidding me. I'm so physically ill. And they said, no, we can't find anything on the blood test. So I was very disappointed in that answer, and I wasn't looking for a psychiatric diagnosis. I was sick, and I was struggling to function in my life. So I ended up going to an alternative medicine practitioner who did Chinese medicine, and she did like hands-on energy healing stuff. And I wasn't familiar with any of this, but I just knew I had to do something so I could keep going with my life. I could barely work anymore. So anyway, that was the beginning of kind of my awareness about there's different ways to approach your health and our experiences and our lives. There's just so much more than what we're told in school and through doctors and through the media and all kinds of things. There's more than that. And it was the beginning of a very long journey of trying to get well. And then when I got well enough, I got pregnant and I wanted to start my family, so I had my son who came into the world struggling more than me. So we were both not well. And I was like, okay, I've got to find out what to do for him. And again, I didn't want some kind of diagnosis that wasn't going to be helpful, something that wasn't going to heal or fix things. It was just going to say, oh, well, what you do is you take this medicine. And I didn't want that. I wanted solutions to resolve the issues. So it was a major learning time. I read hundreds of books. I know you can relate to the feeling of you just wanting to learn and read. I love to read.
Oh, yes.
But it was a really big time of educating myself. And then, what comes along with that is all the problem of, well, what's true and what will actually work for me and what will work for my son, because there's a lot of information in the world. And what I finally figured out, in the meantime, we were going to many kinds of different healing practitioners. We were trying all kinds of different alternative healing modalities, and there's a lot of them, and nothing was solving our many, many issues with our health. And so, I was like, well, I got to keep learning. So in the meantime, I'm figuring out some things like, gosh, we just seem to be more sensitive than other people. Like we would go to these sessions of any kind of healing anything, therapy or alternative, whatever. And we would just suffer, like we would cry and get really sick afterward. And it was like it was too rough for us. I couldn't understand it at the time. Of course I do now. But anyway, so I was starting to understand, because there's something about us that has to do with being really, really sensitive to everything, and we got to a point, so after, 10 years of all of this struggling and learning, and I'm developing my intuition because I'm figuring out, God, I've got to discern through all this information and make sense of it. I need some kind of way to do that other than just what I know, because I don't know all of the stuff I'm reading. So I developed my intuition in many ways so I could get through all that. So, a decade later, I had an experience with a healer. And, this is after I've been going healers for, 10 years and resolving this and resolving that. And she said to me, and this will sound really weird if you're not used to it, but trust me, it got me to the solutions I needed. This little piece of information. And she said, oh, you have all of these past lives that are coming up to be healed. And I just looked at her, and, at the beginning of my journey, I didn't even believe that there was a thing that existed as a past life. I didn't know what a soul was, all that stuff. So anyway, by this point, I'm like kind of open to it. So I said, well, that doesn't make any sense to me because I've been resolving this stuff with different healers for 10 years. How are you telling me there's so many? She goes, well, there's over 800. I said, how are you saying this to me after all I've been through and the money I've paid and the suffering I've gone through to heal all the past lives? And, and I'm going, this doesn't make any sense. And so she said, well, hang on. And so she's, she was a psychic healer, and she would have healed. She goes, hey, this isn't even your past lives. And I was like, what? And that was the beginning of me figuring out and learning what an empath is, and realizing that what I had done all my life was absorbed the energy from everybody else and everything else, and I was just sucking it all in. And once I figured that out, it was really the last piece I needed to put everything together I learned and worked to figure out, and that's when I created a new kind of healing system for us so that we ended all of the suffering and the struggling we were going through. That was the piece I needed, and so that was the empath piece, which I'm happy to tell everybody what an empath is if they don't know, if that's okay. I don't want to leave it at that. Can I tell everybody what that is?
Oh, please do.
Okay. So an empath is a person who has an ability to feel energy, and they can feel, everything's energy, and science knows that we can only see 5%, less than 5% of all the energy that exists. Okay, so I just use the word energy, not to sound weird, but to sound real, true, and, scientific. So an empath can feel energy inside of themselves as if it's coming from inside of themselves. So it feels like it's yours. It feels like you're really sad, or you're really scared or anxious, or you're in horrible pain because of something from within you. But the truth is that it's not always from within you, because you have an extra sense to be able to feel all of this energy that we can't see. And if you don't know that's why you're feeling the way you are, you can get very, very sick and very, very miserable, just like I did. And like I said, that this was the piece that I needed to be aware of to stop all of that mess that was happening, finally start to resolve things to move forward. So I know it sounds it sounds out there, I know that, and I came from a place where I didn't have any exposure to this stuff, but like I said, I've been doing this for over 15 years now, and my whole life has changed now, and we're not struggling like we were. And my son is, oh my God, my son is amazing, and no one can tell what he went through. I never gave him a diagnosis. He's not diagnosed with autism or ADHD, which he probably could have been if I had let it happen, but he is so successful and thriving in the world, and no one can tell what he went through. So it may sound woo-woo, but it's, we resolved it naturally, and so I stand by it. I do. So
But that's awesome, though. I mean,
Yeah,
even though you may say it sounds out there, it's actually, when you think about it, more in there, because
yes.
when you're sensitive, you can take in a lot of things internally. I mean,
yes.
taking in the energy of everybody else and carrying all that weight, that can be really taxing.
It really, really was. And so now what I did was I developed a system where it gives people the tools they need. I wrote it all in a book because I didn't want to keep it to myself. But it provides the tools so that you can get rid of that energy, move that energy away from you. It's very easy, very gentle, and do things in your life that prevent you from, bringing more of it to you or straining your body even more. It's a very kind of big system, but it's that anyone could use. So those working with energy, physical energy, non-physical energy, it really covers the whole thing, because that's what we needed, because we really are that sensitive, and it really is that hard for us to be in the world and be healthy. So I wrote it all down to empower anybody else who's interested in going a natural route.
Awesome indeed. So how did it feel to put all that to paper and actually publish it out?
It was really hard to write it all down because it's really big. But you know what's interesting about it? It wasn't as hard to write it as it was to talk about it. And I couldn't talk about it. It's called the Foundations Healing System. I couldn't talk about it for years because every time someone would ask me about it, I would just freeze. And I was like, it's big. I didn't even know what to say. And it took me years to be able to articulate what in the world it is. So I laugh at it because, it was hard to write it down, but not nearly as hard to break it down so someone could actually, summarize it. That was the more challenging piece. So it took a long time before I actually talked about it. So I self-published it because I was like, okay, I just got to get it out there. And I know that there'll be some updates and some additions as I go, but I can't keep this to myself, because if I meet another parent or another person who's struggling, I need to be able to hand them something, because I couldn't stand that feeling of feeling really, helpless when I was going through it. So I just wanted to get it out there. And it's been edited and updated a lot over the years, but now I can talk about it better.
Woohoo! Just like today, for instance. Well, all righty. That is amazing indeed. Is there?
Yeah.
What do you think was the possible root cause of that fear of just not being able to talk about what you're talking about today? Any idea?
I think it was partial self-confidence issues, partially that I still had more personal healing to experience, partially that, it came through me, but it's a, honestly, I am an intuitive channel. That's how I did it, and it poured through me, but I didn't remember any of the details. So I wrote, and I still am the same way today. I've written many channeled books, and I'll do a video, or I do an online course or Empath, and I don't even know what I said when I finished. I have to keep watching it over and over again. So it's hard for me to say, oh, this is what it's about, because I don't even know what I said. So, and even though I'll read it and I'll proofread it and I'll edit it, and I'll make sure it all is in alignment with the truth the best I can bring forth, but I still don't remember it. So that's just part of my, I guess, the way my brain works and the way I work the channel. I have to review it over and over. And with the foundation system, we were sick, and so I was, working really hard to implement this whole big thing into our lives and help both of us at the same time. So there wasn't a lot of time for me to, make sense of the words. It was just, okay, I got it. I know what to do. I got the big picture. Let's go. And then it's like, somebody, what'd you do? I worked on our diet. It's like, well, how'd you do it? Well, and then I would just get stuck because I didn't have the details in my mind, and yet I had enough within me to know what to do. It's hard to explain because it's just a weird way that I that my brain works with the channeling. But anyway, I've read it a million times now. I've lived with it for so long. I can talk about it now. And I do have the confidence now because now I've been doing it for a long enough time that I can say, and I've worked with other families and helped them, and I can say, you know what, this works. This is something that I believe in and I can get behind, and I can say with confidence, even though it's different, even though I've never seen anything like it, I trust it now. And so I think I just had to get to that point too.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's what I'm talking about. I can feel the confidence coming from you too. This is awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So with all of this experience with the 15 years of being an emboldened empath, I'm pretty sure there have been some trials you had to overcome in addition to the self-confidence.
Well, you mean like being sick?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and this part inside me that just always says, I don't want a psychiatric diagnosis. It's just this, it's inside of me, partially, probably mostly because my mother is a psychologist and she kind of raised us with, you know, you don't need a diagnosis. Let's just get through it and heal it and move on and whatever. So I just kind of had that inside of me where, yes, I felt, you know, as an empath, and you can feel energy, like I said, physically or emotionally. So inside your body and your being, there's really no difference between those. It's only how we kind of perceive them in our mind. That physical is different than emotional or other kind of energy. So as an empath, you just feel. Okay, so you've got a stabbing pain that comes out of nowhere, or you've got this feeling of, you know, I can't even breathe. I don't even know what this emotional feeling is. It's not different. It's the same thing that's happening underneath. You're just reacting to some kind of energy you came in contact with that is toxic or harmful or, you know, shouldn't be around you. Shouldn't be on this planet because it's toxic. But we were so sickly because we didn't understand. Well, first of all, everything had built up, you know, and our bodies were just freaking out at this point. No, we had physical damage going on. And I didn't want, like I said, so I don't remember what I was saying. I didn't want, you know, a diagnosis of you're bipolar or you're depressed or you have anxiety, because I just knew from all that I had learned and written and channeled that wasn't what it was. I knew there were all this other stuff happening was making me feel that way. So it was a challenge to get through every day. You know, back then, before I had the foundations finished, I cried every single day. I just cried every day. I didn't feel good. You know, I didn't know why I was crying, or I was doing some kind of healing session with someone and it's hurting me or whatever. But then, so once we had the foundations going, all of that stuff, it just resolved one thing at a time is what it felt like. It was like, oh, okay, now whatever damage in my body, you know, happened, okay, now that piece is getting better. Now this piece is getting better. And all the puzzle pieces just kind of lined up to make a more healthy person who could function more highly in the world. You know, and that's, for both of us, that's what was happening. But you know, when you're going through healing, it hurts sometimes just as much or more than being sick. So that's part of the healing process, and that is hard, you know, to go through. But one of the things I put into the foundations is that healing process is more gentle. The detoxification process is more gentle than other ways you would normally do it. So, you know, it was better than what we had been doing before, but still, we had to go through it. It's rough. It's hard to live like that. And yet, you know, there's just this voice inside me that says, keep going. Every day, still today, it says, keep going, get up. You're very, very sensitive. Keep going. Okay, we keep going. So it's a very strong sense of perseverance that I live with, and I just keep going because I'm not the only person like this in the world, and my son's not the only child, by far not the only one. And, you know, most of the people like us are heavily medicated, and most of the children like my son would be mostly non-functional, you know, and couldn't go to school. And, you know, he's 15 years old, and he's going to start at community college next year to finish. He's finishing his high school through there. He's so brilliant. He's so amazing, but he couldn't do any of that before. He couldn't go to school before. So it's they would mostly be really struggling, really struggling. So I just kind of hold us out there as something that people can look at and say, it's possible. You can be okay in this world no matter how sensitive you are. You can do it, but it takes a lot of tools, and you have to do a lot of different things for yourself, more than what other people may have to do, but you can do it.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So for those sensitive folks listening at the moment, if you were to give them any advice for them to try to get the courage to embrace their dream and actually keep pushing forward, and hey, they may not want to be a doctor, but they may want to be a coach, what advice would you give to them?
I would say, because I really feel strongly that having knowledge is really key to being empowered and having confidence. You have to have education, but it's not the kind of education you get when you just go to school. And so, Amen. One of the most important. What I want to say to answer your question is, trust yourself and listen to your truth and say your message that needs to be said. But in order to do that, for some of us, like what you were describing, you have to know why it is kind of that you feel the way you do. And part of it is all about energy, and I've described it and written it in ways that anyone can understand, but that I've never seen written before. But you have to understand how energy works in our universe and how it affects how you feel. So that when you feel something, as a sensitive person, you don't judge yourself, and then you don't lose your confidence, and then you don't go the wrong direction. So, or a direction that's going to make it even harder for you. We need those messages to get in the world. We need those people to do what they came here to do. We need everybody to do what they came here to do, and we can't let self-judgments or judgments from other people, because we're just so reactive to this energy. We can't let that get in our way. And I know it's hard because we're reactive to energy, so we don't want to go out there necessarily and be out there real big in the world. But you don't have to be out there big. You can find your own way to express yourself and to put out what you're supposed to put into the world. So educate yourself, learn as much as you can, and then trust your gut to know what you need to do for yourself and to know what you need to do, for your reason for being on Earth and the bigger picture.
That's what I'm talking about, to express yourself fully.
Yeah, you have to. And it's a combination of your intuition and your knowledge together, your mind and your soul together, working together to get out the truth into the world, a world that's full of untruths all over the place, or things that aren't all the way accurate, or something that somebody just thought was a good idea, but wait a minute, is that really helpful? There's just a lot of lies being spread around, and we just have to use our brain, and we have to use our gut to discern through it, and then we go, oh, I think I know what to do now, and then you go forward and trust yourself, and you'll find your way. There'll be ups and downs and setbacks and then moving forward, but you can't give up. You just can't give up.
That's right. No giving up allowed. Don't tap out. So you mentioned earlier that you've read hundreds and hundreds of books. I'm pretty sure there have been a couple that have really inspired you to finally insert yourself into the business of immortality. So mind sharing a couple titles that have really inspired you?
Well, I'll tell you one that from the beginning. And I was reading all kinds of back then I was reading all kinds of alternative healing types of books and all the different things. And I was reading, books about health and stuff about children and all these things. But the one book that made the biggest difference, and it still does today, it's called The Unhealthy Truth by Robin O'Brien. And this book, this woman is a mother of 4 kids, and she's just a regular person who is now I think they call her the Erin Brockovich of the food revolution. She's amazing, and she wrote this beautiful, very accessible book that anybody could read and learn from. And it was the thing that gave me some of the pieces of information about nutrition and food and toxins that I didn't know before, specifically about GMOs, genetically modified foods, and also about food allergies. My son had severe food allergies, and I didn't know anything about that when that started, but the book is brilliant, and I would recommend it to anyone. It's amazing. Still my favorite. Today, just recently, and now I don't read like I used to, because now I have a lot of information, but also my discernment is so high now that I'll look at something and just go, no. It's like in my head, no, that's not right. And I'm like, okay. And I really only like to read nonfiction at this point, unless it's something like that my son has written, and then I love that. He wants to be a writer. But but anyway, so the book I read recently that I want to rave about, to tell people about, it's called Dirty Genes by Dr. Ben Lynch. Oh my gosh, this is going to change the world. This is going to change how everybody thinks and approaches health. And it's not weird or woo-woo. It's scientific. It's about epigenetics and DNA and how the way that your DNA expresses itself affects how you experience your mental, emotional, and physical health, and that there are things that you can do about it. So it's brilliant, amazing, and just groundbreaking. So I definitely recommend that one.
Awesome. Dirty Genes, huh?
Yeah. Oh, man, I just read it. It's like, oh, God. I've been working with the DNA stuff now for my family now to optimize our nutrition better and just to keep helping us to keep moving forward. It's amazing. It's fascinating. There's a whole other way to approach nutrition that I didn't know about before, so I love it.
Huh. Well, again, that does make sense. Pretty with everything that's out there in the world now today, it makes sense.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's such a toxic world. There's so many things that are hurting our health, but also the health of the planet. And we can see it. It's all manifest in front of us, all the severe things happening with the planet, but just also the chronic health that's so many people are experiencing, so many millions of people, and the children who are just getting sicker and sicker and sicker. It all points to toxicity. And when we know about that and we can deal with that and address it in our lives and keep as many toxins away from us and our children that we can, our genes can express themselves in different ways. So now, suddenly we aren't developing that disease or that condition that we're genetically prone to, because we're doing what we can to keep our genes clean, to keep our body cleared out and clean. And this is stuff that I had in the Foundations book, 10 years ago, but I just didn't have the other information that Dr. Lynch is sharing about it, that's why I get so excited. It's like, oh, connecting more pieces. I just had kind of a general way of talking about it, but this is very specific. So exciting, just exciting, all the new things that people are continuing to bring out to empower us so we don't have to be so sick and struggling. That's
right, and to get that magical six-pack, right?
Yeah, I'm not so good at that part. I'm not so good at the exercise part. I never say that I am. I say you have to move your body and you have to do the exercise that feels right to you. And then I just sort of stop talking about it after that point. I know, it's true, but I'm not good at that. Is a definite thing I'm not great about. I don't know. It just doesn't feel good to me. So I have to make myself move. And I do, but I don't like to. My son is the same way. It's horrible. I'm like, oh, God, he rubbed off on you. My husband's the same. Like, no, he doesn't want to move. He just wants to write and read all day, and he wants to play his instruments. I'm like, oh, God, he's just like me. But he's in a musical theater camp right now, so at least they're making him dance. I'm like, good. Move.
Oh, man. Amazing.
Funny.
What is good, though, at least he's playing musical instruments, because that's a lot. Well, I guess it kind of is a lost art depending on where you are, because with all the computerized instruments, you can just get a drum kit on some software, and then you can just make beats and whatnot. But it's good that he's learning how to play a musical instrument or instruments. I'm not sure what he's talented with.
Well, he didn't have much of a choice about the music because I have a master's degree in music. And so when he was, I have pictures of him sitting at the piano when he was in a diaper, just sitting there and playing on the piano because we just always had music around. And when he was 3, I couldn't wait anymore. And I started him on violin lessons because that's one of the only things you can do when they're that little. And this is when he was super sensitive. And both of us had developed really horrible hearing hypersensitivity. It's called hyperacusis. It's really bad. And it got worse and worse through the years until I finally, resolved it with the foundations. But he was playing the violin and didn't like it, would cry every time, but I kept telling him it's good for your brain. When you play an instrument, it makes more of those synapses form, and it's good for your brain, so you have to do it. So he played the violin for, I guess he was about 10 years old, and then one day he looked at me and he said, "Mom, I couldn't tell you when I was younger, but I don't like the violin, and I don't want to play it anymore." I said, "Oh, my God." I was just, no, the first thing I said was, "Okay, what do you want to play instead?" So he said, "I don't know." So he tried something, tried piano, tried other string instruments, didn't like him. And so he did that for a couple of years. And then, I guess he was in 7th grade, some kids were playing the ukulele at his school or something, and he had a ukulele at home. So he said, "I'm going to play my ukulele." I said, "Well, do you know how?" "No." I said, Okay, so that was like 2 or 3 years ago. Today, he is the most amazing ukulele player. He plays it like it's a classical guitar. And then 2 days ago, literally, he picked up my guitar, sat down for a half an hour, walked over to me and goes, "Listen," and played all the songs he can play on the ukulele on the guitar. And I said, "Well, guess you found your instruments, huh?"
There you go.
So I can't complain as long as he's doing something with music because he's gifted. He needs to do it. And it makes him so happy. And I'm so glad that, I pushed him when he was little, but then I gave him the space to find his instrument. And would I have ever chosen the ukulele? As a professional musician, would I have chosen the ukulele for him? No. But he loves it. He can't stop playing it. So, hey, there you go. You never know. And it's pretty gentle sounding, so it's good for his ears.
So no do. Oh
no, he plays that. He does. He has an electric ukulele, among other ones, and he does play that. So he knows he has to put it on headphones so it doesn't bother me. I don't like it. I don't like the electric one. But no, the kid is a completely different child. I can't emphasize enough for anybody listening who thinks that their kid is stuck living a certain way of struggling. I used to have to pick him up from school because he heard something loud and was crying, and it would take 2 days for him to feel better. It was, we were really bad off. And now he's just whatever, he goes to the movies, doesn't use earplugs. He just it's fun. He likes action movies. I'm like, who are you? You can't tell. You just can't tell what went through. Amazing.
Amazing indeed. Actually, I think of the first masters in music that actually had on the podcast, so that's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's in conducting. Ooh. And the most heartbreaking thing, one of the most terrible things I was going through when I was struggling with my health and the hyperacusis was that I couldn't listen to or make music anymore for, at least 10 years. And I sold all my instruments because I gave up and didn't think I'd ever be able to do it because my hearing was so sensitive. I wasn't functioning well because I would start to scream and cry if I heard something too loud. So now, though, in the last just couple years, it's gotten so much better, and I'm teaching music again, and I'm conducting again, and I'm making music, and what an amazing thing that it actually came back. I thought it was over, but it wasn't. I'm glad I didn't completely give up on myself and kept trying to heal. So now I don't have all my instruments, though, so I kind of have to build that back up. But anyway, yeah, I hope everybody listening can see that, just don't give up. You just never know. Just keep trying.
Amen to that indeed. So if you're 25 in 2018 with all of your amassed knowledge, what advice would you give to yourself?
If I was 25 now, I would say what I was saying before about educating myself more, and I would and using the discernment and everything, I would say that. And I would explain that there are so many things that aren't true, and don't just believe something because you like the person that said it or because they have some kind of credential. It doesn't mean it's true. And then I would really say to myself, with all of that information, you have to take the best possible care of yourself in every possible way that you can, because you are really sensitive and you don't know it. And you're important and you're worth it, and this world needs you to be healthy and strong, and your family needs you. So you have to take really, really good care of yourself. You can't, when I was actually 25, I was a vegan, but I wasn't the kind of vegan that knows how to eat healthily. I was just, don't eat animals, because I love animals, but I wasn't eating healthy. So it made me very sick. It's part of why I got really sick. So I would just tell myself, really, you've got to go deeper in getting knowledge about what you eat and what you do and how it affects you, because it's going to make it harder in your life if you don't.
Very true indeed. Very true indeed. So for those who want to keep in touch with you, even visit you when you're conducting an orchestra, how can we keep in contact with you?
I'm just teaching now. I'm not conducting professional orchestra. But my website, where all my books are, Empathic Sensitivity book and the Foundations Healing System and all of that, that is called empoweredthriving.com. And those are the words that always motivate everything I do. Is I just want to empower people to be able to thrive living on a planet full of so much harshness, So empoweredthriving.com. Yeah, I would love for you to visit and contact me if you have questions about anything. And I also have a brand new course for empaths. Really amazing online course, and you can access it there too.
Woohoo! Well, there you have it, folks, from the wonderful PhD herself, the pretty human doctor, Dr. Janice. Go on ahead and head over to her wonderful website and be empowered, and then go out and thrive after picking up 23 copies of all of her books. And we can build up her music instrument collection once again.
Thank you. That's awesome. I so appreciate it.
Woohoo! So any final words?
Oh, gosh, just thank you all for listening to me talk. Thank you, Don, for having me here. It's just wonderful to, I think we can all feel like just to have your voice be heard, and have the messages you have to share with the world be heard. So I'm just really grateful to be here. Thank you.
Hey there, buddy. Looks like you made it to the end of this episode. Since you made it to the end of this episode, do both of us a favor and stop being greedy. Stop it right now and share this episode with your friends and your fellow podcast lovers, especially those who have book clubs and want to listen to the authors who write some amazing books. Be sure to check out the rest of the backlog too while you're at it, and share all those too.